starting over, the geospatial job market has been quite interesting. This is just my personal opinions, my personal views. And in case I got muted before, thank you everybody for coming out and listening to me today. So, just a real quick overview of what I've come across in just the geospatial industry. We're all geospatial professionals here, but as we know, CERMS, it is a foundational technology. We need it. It is more and more companies are realizing they do not have a complete database without GIS. I am very, very adamant about that. As I have explored all these different avenues and everything. So this is just a basic overview of, our industry. And the motivation for my job change, my previous position was eliminated. I made the role so big I couldn't keep up with it, and they did not want to bring on a team to help me keep up with everything that needed done. They'd rather contract out, and anybody that's in local government knows that always looks good to the people. We cut staff, but you don't know that they are bringing on a whole nother company. So that's what happened. It was a mutual parting of the ways, saw what was coming. They gave me a really soft landing and everything worked out. So a little bit about myself, because this is pertinent to my personal job search, my educational background. I took the scenic route for my bachelor's. I started in 1999, originally to be a teacher. My grades weren't quite where they needed to be at that time. So I wanted to stay in geography, fell into GIS, loved it. So I graduated with a degree, Bachelor of Fine Arts in Geography with concentration in GIS and CART. Went back to school for my master's. I got my graduate certificate in 2019. I am one class short because I was right in the middle of my thesis and COVID kind of wrecked it. And with everything that's been going on, I just quite haven't picked it back up. My professional experience, pre-GIS, I've done a lot. I've been in the service industry. I've done everything in restaurants short of own a restaurant. I've been retail, everything there short of own a business. In automotive, I've been a manager all the way down to mechanic. I've been in the Air Force. I was a radar and radio repair for C-130s and A-10s, cook and infantry in the Guard, and been in many manufacturing capacities as well. My professional experience started in 2013 when I went back to school and I started at IMAPS. And this, I have my resume, and this is just a ChatGPT summary. I plug my resume in, and this is what it comes out with. I worked at IMAPS from 13 to 15. I did an internship in 14, Lawrence County as a GIS planner from 15 to 19, Township of Hampton from 2019 until last February. So relevant background information, because no job search is the same. There are some things that are extremely unique to me. This is where some of you are going to find out some things about me. I have a background that really limits me. I have a felony. I don't hide from it, but this is something I have to take into account. This is why this presentation has some generic elements about the job search, but why it is tailored to me, because there are a lot of jobs I cannot apply for. I caused an accident in 2003. I did my time, and as a result, anything with DOD, military related, I am absolutely categorically not allowed to do. DOD, black and white, felony, nope, can't work for us. There is no gray area. There is no, let's take, look at it. Other factors, my wife has cancer. Some of you may know this, some of you may not. So the location, we have to consider that it is, the continuity of care. Just so nobody freaks out, the prognosis is good for her. She just finished some treatments. She's on the back end of it, but she still has more to do. So we have to be conscious of the healthcare system in the area we would be moving to. And then finally, I have an 11-year-old. I have to be considerate of the school systems and activities for her. If you're a single person, none of this applies to you unless you have a felony. I hope you don't. But if you have a family, these are other things you have to take into consideration when you are looking for that next job if you're looking to move. So, my target companies, positions, locations, the company types that we service: public, local government, NGOs, state government, and I forgot to add one in there, the private sector. No, I'm sorry, I put it right there. So those are the public ones. The private sectors, your engineering, your geospatial ones. These are the ones that I primarily applied to. Positions. I applied to so many positions. We're going to get into that. But I was focused mainly on the senior level. Based on my experience, I was looking at mid, senior, and up. But I apply for everything. I'm not going to stick my nose up and say, no, I'm too good for that, because I'm not too good for anything. If it puts food on my table and a roof over my head, I absolutely will apply. And then the locations. I was looking at local, I was willing to move, and I was willing to work remotely. So networking strategies. LinkedIn is probably where I spent most of my time. I started my job search there, and then I expanded to Indeed, ZipRecruiter, Glassdoor, with just Indeed with reviews, and Dice Jobs. If you haven't heard of that, that's a tech job board. There are other geospatial job boards out there, but most of them ended up on LinkedIn or one of these other big four here. GeoSearch and GeoOwl are a couple that come to mind, and GJC. And I do have a really good story about GJC coming up. Personal professional connections. A lot of you in here I've talked to, you knew I was in the job search. I've had so many people reach out to me. I posted on LinkedIn, guys, I cannot stress to you the community that we have in the geospatial industry. It is ridiculous. I've had people reach out to me that's, second or thirds on LinkedIn, saw I was looking for a job and started sending me things that they were coming across that I hadn't seen. Our community, if you are in the job market, I don't know about other industries, I highly, highly suggest you go out on LinkedIn, you join those GIS groups, all that. You will get the help you need. I promise you. I am overwhelmed with the amount of help I have received, both from people I know and even more amazingly, people I don't know. Professional organizations. Obviously, we're all members of URISA or other organizations like Keystone GIS, OGRIP. If you're in Ohio, I know West Virginia has their consortium down there. Check there. I know we as Keystone GIS, we have a job board. Your state job boards, anything you're a part of, somebody network in there. You will find many leads. One of the best things I heard years and years and years ago was the best jobs never get listed. It's going to be word of mouth. So you have to get out there and put yourself out there and let people know. And go to events, conferences, and use your connections. I have a conference tomorrow. And had I will be using things there, but to this date, to right now, I have not been to any events or conferences. So, tips for tailoring your resumes and cover letters. If you haven't dusted off your resume in a while, you definitely should. The whole experience has changed. Gotta love my meme. I've seen so many different things, especially with the recruiters. 90% of them, unless they are a geospatial recruiter like GeoSearch or GeoOwl, have I'm trying to be nice here, no clue what we do. They just get stuff from wherever they're getting it from, whether it is the the company that's hiring, or they scrape somewhere else and they're just trying to get people in front because that's how they get paid. But my God, do recruiters not understand our industry? Keep your resume simple. I know some of us from the old school, you know, if you're a Gen Xer and older, we remember some of those nice, big, elegant resumes. Nobody cares about that anymore. Keep it simple. If you're not confident in your resume writing skills, which I am not, it is absolutely okay to hire someone to rework your resume. I highly, highly suggest that if you're not good with words and stuff like that, like me. I can sell myself verbally. I cannot do it on paper. That's one of my weird deficiencies. But do your research. I don't know if any of y'all on TikTok or anything like that. I actually saw on TikTok a huge controversy that has blown up recently about the resume writing industry. And it was about somebody on LinkedIn that was offering resume writing services. And all of these resume writers are having beef. It is wild. So make sure they understand your industry or the tech industry. They need to have some understanding of the geospatial industry in order to give you a resume that's going to suit you. Make sure you highlight your achievements. Just saying what you've done. My old resume just said, hey, I created this database. I did this. You know, I work with people. No, if you had a project, detail that, especially if it was, you know, something that impacted your organization. All the resume writers I talked to when we were, you know, I did 7-on-1 and we were working things out, you know, really pulled out of me projects and went into detail. The applicant tracking system, if you cannot beat it. The AI, I've done the research on this. There are literally hundreds of different applicant tracking systems. You cannot beat them all, and you do not know which one to tailor your resume for. So you have to work with somebody that will keep your resume as clean as possible, simple, highlight the your achievements, and then you can tailor your resume specifically as needed. But you cannot beat the applicant tracking system, and anybody that says that they can guarantee it, run. I'm telling you that now. You're not going to do it. You might get lucky, but in general, it won't happen. And 100%, I don't know how people did it in the past, writing cover letters over and over and over and tailor it for every single job. Some of the jobs that I've applied to have required cover letters in order to submit the application. What I did is I took their job description and my resume, dropped in ChatGPT, said, give me a basic cover letter with my skill set and this job description, and then make sure you proofread. None of the AIs are perfect. I have seen people copy stuff and drop it in, and you look at it, it's like, oh yeah, that's definitely, you know, they didn't proofread. And then finesse of language. Remember, ChatGPT can be your friend. You can and should use it, but it is just a language model. You need to reread it and make sure it fits your style. When I reread every cover letter, and I would change out some of the language, like that just doesn't sound right because it is a language model and it doesn't sound like something I would say. A lot of it's like, oh yeah, I like that. Like, oh no, that just sounds weird and doesn't particularly apply. So you need to finesse that. And then that it looks even better because it looks professionally done and there is some tailoring to it. It's not just a copy paste done, you forgot about it. You know, you put a little bit of thought into it, I think you will see better results.
Hey, Joe.
Yes.
Can I interrupt you real quick, please?
Absolutely.
Whenever you said don't try, or you can't beat the ATS.
Yes.
Could you go into detail a little bit with that? Whenever you're talking about beating it, are you just saying that you can't create a generic document, you need to tailor every resume and cover letter because it's going to vary from position and ATS to position and ATS, or did you mean something different?
Flip that. Tailor your cover letters. The ATS isn't keen on the cover letters. They're keen on the resume. The resume you want to keep very simple and focused. Because if you start doing all these other little things or make it too long, the ATS isn't going to recognize all that extra stuff. So you want to keep it very simple. your resume needs to be almost more generic, and then you can go in there and drop in a couple things once in a while. But if you get that resume really tailored to you and your highlights, you don't have to worry about trying to beat the ATS, because that resume will accurately reflect you. And that's one of the biggest, best things you can do is really get a well-crafted resume.
Okay.
And I highly suggest hiring somebody if you're not good. I am not. I spent $75 and got mine done. There are people out there that will different age ranges, price ranges, and different packages. Some people go in and do LinkedIn, depending on what level you're looking for. They will strategically, put your resume together to apply for, appeal to those positions specifically. And that's part of the thing. If you have a resume and you're applying across all the board, you're going to see I applied to 206 jobs. I cannot tailor my resume to 206 jobs. I've got to tailor it to me. And then for those jobs that I really, really want, finesse that. If I'm just applying for a GIS analyst, that's one thing. If I'm applying for Esri, I'm going to tailor that because I want that Esri job, or Carnegie Mellon. But if I'm applying to GIS analyst at ABC Engineering Company, I'm just going to make sure my resume and I meet their criteria. And since the vast majority of my applications are those general applications, that's how it's going to run through the ATS, but it'll hit it normally. That's what my experience.
So make sure you have a solid foundation with your resume, and then you'll make minor tweaks if necessary for different positions. But whenever it comes to the cover letter, keeping it fairly generic is usually going to be sufficient.
The cover letter, I would say, actually make it specific. You want to go take your resume and that job description and combine them.
Okay.
What you do is you copy paste them, put them into the ChatGPT, and you say, I need a cover letter for this job description using my resume. Put in your parameters. I want it to be 3 paragraphs, 2 paragraphs. I want this tone. People don't realize the power of ChatGPT right now to generate these things, and then when you go back and finesse it. But when you use that ChatGPT and you combine the two, you're going to get a tailored cover letter. You don't want a tailored resume. You want a tailored cover letter. Does that make sense, Seth?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. So now you have to go and leverage your skills and your expertise. So for me, I'm evaluating myself. What are my personal specific skills and expertise? So I'm strong at, but I want to see what ChatGPT said. And this is what, using all my projects, all the stuff I fed into it, it came up with these top 5. I said, hey, give me my 5 best personal skills. GIS database management, web development, API integration, SharePoint administration, interdisciplinary collaboration, and spatial analysis and planning. This hits so many things in our industry that I am capable of. And this was summarized by ChatGPT from everything I fed into it. And these are the points I'm going to highlight in my resume and in interviews. This isn't just about getting your paper there. When you actually get that interview, you need to figure out where are my skill sets. So now I know, okay, let me focus on these things because, I can talk about any one of these super easy. Anybody could pick any one of those topics and I'll be able to riff for at least half hour right now on it. We won't because that's all we have left. But when you use all your technology in this job search, you can really, really refine yourself and the job search. And how do you highlight these strengths? You put it in your resume summary, your objective, your skills section, your experience section. And I failed to put in here. Put it into your interview. So, overcoming challenges. If you're employed, this could be really tough. I think it's almost tougher in the ability to schedule interviews and stuff like that than if you're unemployed. So if you're employed, you have limited availability. Balancing job search activities with your current work responsibilities can be challenging, especially when your employers conduct interview during standard working hours. And if you're trying not to let your current employer know, that can be even trickier. exhaustion. I have been unemployed and it's been a full-time job doing this. So to have to work and then do this on the side, you're almost working two full-time jobs. And then the restricted networking opportunities. You have limited time outside of work. So you're already putting in 8 hours a day everywhere else, for your job. Now you're limited time to go places, to meet people, to attend events, to go to conferences that you otherwise, wouldn't be going to meet and greet people. So those are the barriers if you're employed. If you're unemployed, that's a whole different kind of thing. The pressure to secure income. I've been feeling that pressure mounting increasingly, even though I was given a nice soft landing. I was actually on the payroll up until 2 weeks ago. My insurance is taken care of through June. I had my days paid out, so I had a nice little windfall, and I had my 401k I could tap. When you have zero income outside of that, and you start seeing your bank account dwindle and nothing's coming back in, you start the angst and the anxiety starts coming in heavy, and you have to be careful because you're almost willing to jump at that first job, that first offer. And you're like, this sounds good. I've been on the market. I don't know if and when. And it seems counterintuitive. It's like, I have to say no. Even though I need this money, I have to say no to this. And it is an agonizing decision to say no. And if you're with a partner, I mean, hopefully you have somebody that's really in tune with you and they can really help you through that. I was blessed. I had that with my wife. If you're by yourself, that's a struggle, you have to face with yourself or bring somebody into your circle. It is not easy regardless. The financial strain, again, each passing day of unemployment, it just adds on to that. And then the emotional toll. I have a family that depends on me, and I have my own demons to deal with. I need to do something. I am the primary provider for my family. So that emotional toll when I'm getting interviews or I get denied and I get turned down for this, that, the other, it's tough. Everybody has their own ways to deal with it, and I can 100% understand why people crack and do dumb things. A job search of this magnitude, to try and secure a future for our family is not for the faint of heart. Other challenges you have to worry about: competition. The amount of jobs that I've been out there and seeing, how many applicants? Oh, 10, 5 to 15 applicants. Okay. 600 applicants. What? You almost have to laugh like, do I even want to bother? Do I stand a chance? But if you follow everything else, you stand as good a chance as everybody else. If you do the cover letter, tailor that, and keep the basic resume, you stand as good a chance as anybody else that doesn't have an automatic in. Active experience or skills. Many of you have heard this. I believe it 100%. Apply for the jobs even if you don't have the skill set 100%. No, every employer would love to hire somebody with 100% of the skills, but the 80-20 factor is really what they're looking for. If you know 80% of it, I can teach you the 20%. So don't be afraid of your lack of work or experience in certain realms. I am not a Python scripter, but I'm applying probably a good 70% of the jobs I applied to require some kind of Python experience. I understand it, and I make sure people know. What I lack in Python, I make up somewhere else, but I do have a familiarity with it. Even those skills that I'm kind of weak on, I still list them so that I get that skill set in front of people and I can explain to them where I'm at with that. And then just the uncertainty. Dealing with the job market. It fluctuates month to month. You could be in a really good job cycle, or you could be in a really, really bad one. And that is influenced by the industry itself and then the external influences on that industry. So some trends and opportunities that I have seen in all these job descriptions. I've read so many job descriptions. I'm job descriptioned out. AI, being able to effectively leverage machine learning within whether it's Arc Pro or any other GIS software, or scripting, or being able to create AI models, being able to use ChatGPT or the other ones effectively, that is monstrous right now. Everybody's moving to that. Nobody has a grip on it except for those uber nerds that developed it, but there is a market for that. And if you can get in on that and learn how to use that effectively in our industry, you're going to have a leg up. AR, VR, my PA people that are here, Seth, I think you're the only one that I recognize right away, unless Dr. Buckwalker's still here. But Steve Kocius out of Cambria County, he is like in my opinion, the premier 3D VR, AR guy in the state. That guy is doing amazing things with it. Every conference, if anybody here gets a chance to see any of his presentations on the AR, VR, highly suggest doing it. Geospatial intelligence. I saw so many job opportunities out there in the geospatial intelligence industry. Which is completely off limits to me. A lot of those require top secret clearances. I am ineligible for that. Location-based services and geomarketing. I applied to Wendy's. I applied to Safelite Auto Glass, and a bunch of businesses, not your traditional businesses, that are looking into GIS to augment, their business practices. Because as I said earlier on, everybody's realizing their databases are not complete. You can have the best SQL, Oracle, Postgres database. If you don't have a spatial component to it, you're lacking, and you're going to fall behind everybody that does. Remote sensing, drone capture, point cloud capture, LiDAR imagery, all of that is still, that's always going to be there. That's where we get a lot of our information. And geospatial cloud computing, platform as a service. This is becoming big. Taking your on-prem or enterprise, putting it up into the cloud, putting it on Amazon Web Services or anything like that, reducing your infrastructure. If you can get into that and harness that for an organization, or be able to do that for organizations, you are being able to get right in, and this is a huge movement right now. And then the 3D mapping, digital twins ties back to that AR, VR, and that Steve also does a lot on that. And he's been doing this for years. And everybody else is just hearing about this, but those of us that know Steve, he's been doing this for almost 10 years now. And then how do you stay updated with these developments? How do you know where to go? LinkedIn articles, GIS publications, and professional organizations. You have to stay up on this if you're in the job market. I got asked several different questions over my interviews that were just all over the place, and some of them dealt with current things and how did you see, like, philosophies. You can't form a philosophy if you're not in the know of what's going on now. I actually got a question about what is your philosophy on GIS, and the technology in the modern world, and I had to come up with on the fly based off my current knowledge. Now we're going to get to the fun stuff, the graphs and charts. So as I was embarking on this journey, and as much of a data geek and uber Excel nerd that some of you know that I am, I'm just weird that way. I decided to keep track of everything in Excel. This allows me to visually show you what I have experienced. I can tell you all that, but sometimes we just need that visual. So some quick methodology and definitions. So in my Excel sheet, I have all these fields captured. There's a couple other fields that are relevant to this. If you do something like this, you're going to put different fields. These are the ones that are most relevant to this. So the definitions, if I'm interviewing, I have a scheduled interview. If I'm waiting, I have had verbal contact, and by verbal, I mean I have met them in person, a phone call, or a video chat or interview. Action means it's been strictly through email. I've not actually talked to somebody. I consider that different because if I get you on the phone or in front of you on a screen or in person, I really get to sell myself. Done in my chart means no longer in consideration for a variety of different reasons. I have several different categories. I withdrew from that. I declined the offer. If an offer was made, they declined me. They moved on. I was ghosted. I have a couple different things in there just to keep track. I have a category, no reply. So I applied and I haven't heard anything, no email, no nothing for over 3 weeks. And then applied is my less than 3 weeks with no action. So now we're going to have my application submitted by date. This does not count my weekend, not weekends, just days I didn't. So this is since February 9th. And we're going to see a crazy outlier here. I don't know what I was doing on February 28th that prompted me to put in almost 30 applications that day. Some of these 1 or 2 or 3s, those are me sitting in bed at night on my tablet and like I can't sleep, my anxiety's keeping me up, and I just go on LinkedIn. I apply to jobs on LinkedIn or Indeed right, at night. And so that's what some of those 1, 2, and 3s are, midnight job applications. And that brings us to 206 total jobs. Where I found the jobs that I applied for. These are the different sites or personal reach outs. Dice, GJC, Glassdoor, Indeed, LinkedIn, and Zip are all the websites. I was recruited, and what I mean by that is I had somebody from another country call me and pitched me a job, and I went through with, on the phone and all this stuff where they keep you on the phone for 30 minutes or so while they send you stuff via email so they can keep you and represent, so you sign the right to represent and you don't sign with anybody else. That's how they get their money, is they have that signature and they hire you, the company they're representing, hires you. I did have a direct referral that I applied to as well. In my chart, you saw I kept track of dates. So these are the averages, since the date applied, 37 days. Days since most recent action. So anytime there was some action on my application that I could quantify, I had a date, whether it was through LinkedIn or Indeed or the other platforms where they say your resume has been downloaded, your resume has been seen. You get those alerts. I kept track of that. Every single time I get one of those, that went in there. If I had contact with them, that went in there. So in there, I had days between, or days since the most recent action on that application. And this only counts the applications that have any action. So if I hadn't heard no reply at all, no action at all, that doesn't count into this. So the average amount of days between actions, or the most recent actions, was 33 days. And the difference, so the difference is between the hold on, I'm blanking. Is the difference between the 2 most recent actions on the application itself. So if I talk to somebody, if they emailed me and then I called them, or I had 2 interviews, so it's the difference between the 2 most recent actions. And the average on that is 9 days. So if you're looking for a job really quickly, you're not, unless you get lucky, you're going to have, it's going to be tough. And as of today, and keep in mind, all these things are as of today, because this is all dynamic, link right to my Excel sheet. So we'll get back to that. This is the one that's going to hurt your heart. This is a list. I know you can't see it. It was not meant for you to be seen, but just for you to see the ridiculousness of all the job titles I applied for. 206 jobs applied. 150 of them, so half, literally half of them had GIS in that title. And so the percentage of the jobs, was 3/4. but other unique job titles. It was just nobody understood. And then when you get into the descriptions, you would have a senior level manager have almost the identical requirements for an analyst or entry level. And it was so bizarre that a lot of these places I applied to through the recruiters and stuff, they just had no idea what we do. And I dare say we don't understand what we do half the time. If I ask any one of you, what is your title and what does it encompass? All of you could give me the same title and give me different, what is the difference between an analyst and a coordinator and a planner? It's nobody knows right now. And I do know that URISA is having conversations to that point. But this is the one thing, one of the graphics that really absolutely blew my mind. And in case you're wondering, that very, very, very top one there is GIS analyst at 34. GIS manager at 10. Then specialist, technician, administrator, project manager, and coordinator. Those are your top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'll probably have to update this, put those in a graphic there. Yeah, because I'll be honest, guys, I just finished this up about an hour and a half ago. So there's still some tweaking to do with this. But you see, what's the difference between an analyst, a specialist, and a technician? I have no idea. What's the difference between a manager, a coordinator, and an administrator? Again, I don't know what the broader definition is, but even within the geospatial industry, there's no consensus. And that's what I think we need to move towards, is consensus. So where did I apply? And where are we willing to move? Everywhere. Of course, I had to include a map somewhere in this. I'm doing a job search in the geospatial industry. Hawaii and Puerto Rico are not on there. This was just a nice, cleaner, simpler map. But this is where, all the different places that I applied to. You can see I was not shy. I was shotgunning the entire country. Now, mind you, the reason Pennsylvania has the most, because any remote jobs I applied to, I kept the state as PA. So, in conclusion here, we possess a diverse skill set for success. We can do so much, and if you really get into your resume and really dissect what you do in your job, you realize you do way more than you realize. And I think people are starting to realize that. They just don't want to pay us like that. We have GIS in our name and not IT. They pay us less because they don't realize that GIS really is the equivalent of IT, and it's starting to come around. And I hope for the younger people, it does blow up for them. Time management, especially if you're working, is critical in this. Last week, I had 3 interviews, one in Union County, one in Doylestown, one in Delaware. I was all across the state. 2 weeks ago, I went out to Chicago for an interview. I left at night, interviewed at 7:30 in the morning, and drove back right after the interview. Funny story. My interview was right above the URISA office in Des Plaines, Illinois, that they no longer use. They're waiting for the lease to run out. Unemployment is, if you're on the unemployment side of it, it's tough. It is. So you have to keep going. It is a grind every single day. You have to keep going. You have to be adaptable. You have to be able to pivot. On the back half of week 5, week 6, week 7, I started applying to jobs that had nothing to do with the geospatial industry. I started looking at just general IT jobs, something I could translate my skill set into, and I had to be open to doing that. A good friend of mine, Phil, big, the dude is a Python beast, has done GIS for, I think, damn near 20 years now, has transitioned back into more of an IT role and less of a GIS role. Engaging with professional organizations, staying informed about the industry. You have to do that. You must do that, because if you go into these interviews and you don't know what the current trends are and what's going on, you are going to sink. Yeah, that's what I was told. And interviews. So we're going to leave it on here. We're going to say, if you find yourself in that position, you're ready for the next best thing, you hate your job, there's regime change coming. If you're in the market, channel your Sherlock Holmes. You're going to have to do a lot of investigative work, but we can do it. That's what we do. We data mine. We are good at finding these things. Get that resume out there. You'll be all right. Now you got to do the job. You got to do the experiments. You have to, I had to find what worked for me. I had to tailor my resume to me. I got to figure out what industry, what sectors I want to go into. So you have to figure all that out for yourself. And if you start getting more replies in a certain area, maybe you want to start shifting towards that. So you're going to have these little experiments and see where you're at.
Joe, we have a couple questions in the.
Okay, I'm almost done. I'll get there. Thank you. Network. We're going to sharpen our negotiation skills. We're going to summon the courage of a medieval knight. And we're going to interviews. You better have your word game good. I had interviews all across the board. And then finally, when you get that job and you land it, let everybody know. And for me, I thank everybody that's helped me. So step 7, finally, you unveil your triumphant victory. And I am pleased to announce, some of you know, most of you don't, I have offered and been accepted Director of Geospatial Information Technology for Union County, Pennsylvania. Thank you, everybody. Anybody that wants a copy of my slide deck, I'd be more than happy to share it with you. Reach out to me. I will now minimize here because I want to show you guys one little thing, and then I will address all the questions. If you bear with me one moment. So this is my spreadsheet. Can everybody see that? So this here is me keeping track of everything. And I have conditional formatting in here. So one thing you'll see here, I know it's kind of hard to read because I'm trying to fit everything in here. So I have this no reply. If I just pull this down, all the way down to here, you see, it automatically highlights. If I change this, go here, I go to action, does this. I come to sort and filter, custom sort, boom, it goes up into my action stuff. And I do have a macro, but I've tinkered with it and I had to change things. I have highlight in all my different colors, anything over 21 days. You see, I've had interviews that I've been waiting 40 days since I had a verbal talk with somebody. This is the frustration I'm talking about. So with that, I will stop sharing and I will address some questions and take some after. Let's see here. Let me find the chat. Okay. Oh, how many interviews did I get? Okay, let me pull up my sheet. I can tell you, out of those 206 verbal interviews, 19. I did have a couple people contact me with email, but actual in-face or on screen, actually talk on the phone talking to somebody. I had 19. It sounds terrible, but a lot of it has to do with the modern day job market. Let's see. Second question, gig work. I did not go into gig work. I wanted to focus all my attention on here, and I didn't need to as I had a really soft landing spot, but I did start my own LLC for just, that if something came my way, I was prepared for that. And I would suggest anybody that has the wherewithal and the means, an LLC for gig work is great. I have never actually heard of Upwork. I know about Fiverr. Time from laid off until new job. Laid off February 9th. I interviewed April 1st. Yeah, that was weird. I was driving away from the interview, going to King of Prussia, and I got a call, hey, we want to hire you. While I was driving away, they were hoping I was in the area so they could drive me around the county and show me everything. They wanted me that day. I ended up going back on Thursday. We're working things out. Recording will be available. That you'll have to ask. Yeah, somebody already posted that. Okay. Okay. I did share that, and if anybody's interested, I'll type my email into the chat, and I can share. I can send you links to my stuff if you want to see anything else. And with that, we still have some time. Please, anybody wants to ask a question, feel free to unmute yourself and jump on.
Joe,
oh, come on. Somebody's got something.
I got something for you.
All right, Seth.
Okay, so in the interviewing process, you made your way through the automated selection system, through at least the initial cursory overview of everything, and then you get in front of somebody or people in general, and they have a variety of questions. How often in the course of those verbal interviews did you find yourself being asked to focus on GIS itself versus more generic questions, like the standard interviewer questions, just to get a feel for a personality? How did that shake out for you?
It was all over the board. I kid you not. I interviewed for 2 counties. I had 3 interviews last week. Union County, Carroll Engineering, and Newcastle County, Delaware. And I could not have had 3 different interviews. And you have to be the best interviewers. And I'm sorry, if you're not a spontaneous or extemporaneous speaker, if you are in the job market like this, you're going to struggle because nothing is the same. I would say to your question, Seth, I probably did because I was focused mainly in the geospatial realm. Probably a good 60% of the interview questions were GIS related. A lot of it was project related too. I'd say there was a good 25%, project management. We all know that GIS is project based. So I had questions, that would tell me about a time that GIS, you did this in GIS. Tell me about this, those typical STAR questions. Then I had one of the more wild interviews where it was a panel interview, 2 HR people to my left, a panel of 4 people here, and it was strict. These are the GIS people, GIS manager, their scripter, their developer, and some other like IT person. Series of 10 questions. This was so GIS and spatially based, it was ridiculous. It was, look at these questions, or they'll ask you a question, you have to verbalize your answer. They were only allowed to ask that question. They could not rephrase it. No other questions were asked. 10 questions, that's it, done. Very formulaic. I found out with Union County, they had a script they were going to go with. The commissioner decided after the initial introduction, he decided to go off script. He said something. The other one that I had in the middle of that was very geospatial and business oriented because it was for an engineering firm and they want to grow their geospatial side of it. So depending on the role, depends on the percentage of GIS questions you're going to get asked. Especially with the management, if you're looking at management, they're going to look at how do you function as a team and work with people.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So salary range, I saw everything from $21 to $256,000. And I mean $21 an hour to $256K a year. And that's because a lot of that is recruiting forms, not knowing our stuff. What I was targeting, and I have no problem saying what I was making. I was in the public sector, you can find out. If I was private sector, it'd be a little different because some of that's proprietary. But the public sector, as a GIS administrator for a local township, I was at 75, which is better than most counties, as I have come to find out. So I was targeting The upper end, I need 75 minimum, to survive with what I've been doing. And it has become really tough because 75 and everything is manageable because of where I live. The housing market in Newcastle, Pennsylvania, you're not going to find very often, especially in these markets that you're going to be looking to move to in this industry. So I have another spreadsheet with my finances, and I have a spinner on there. So when I get a call and somebody, there's interest in there, so like Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, I put in there and let me go look at median rent income, and I can hit that spinner, and I can on both the rent and the salary, and I can compare the two, see where I need to be at. I'm an uber nerd, data nerd that way. I like to see things and be able to make those decisions with that data right there. And it helps me evaluate everything in its totality, because somebody can come at me, oh, I'll give you 110 grand today. If I'm living in Newcastle, I'm jumping on that. If I'm living in King of Prussia, whoa, we need to pump those brakes. Or New York, we need to pump those brakes. 110 is not, that might give me a fifth floor walk up in New York and no groceries for the month. So you have to take all of that into totality when you're considering your price range. And I found that so tough. What's your price range? If you're dealing with a recruiter, ask them what's the offered price range for this job, and always see if you can take it higher. Because the other thing you have to consider are benefits. I can take lower if I don't have to pay for my medical, because at a county job, that's covered. But if I'm in the private sector, I might have to come out of pocket. So you have to balance all those things when you talk about your price range. And it helps to have all your bills figured out, knowing the rent market of where, if you're staying local or if you plan on moving, and factoring all that in before you give a number. Anybody hiring worth their salt will work with you on that. If they say you have to give me a number and we can't, that's what it is, that's a company you want to run from. How long did it take to get my first offer? My first official offer, and it was Union County, so that was almost 2 months from the day I was laid off, but from date of interview, it was an hour from interview to offer. The engineering firm that it was agonizing to turn down, but I did because I interviewed with them on Tuesday, and Union got back to me, and we're talking 2 different salary levels and 2 different lifestyle levels. Anybody that has worked both sectors knows government, very slow, very laid back, relaxed, you get to breathe. Whereas private sector, it's bottom line driven. I've got to have a problem with that. Do I want to do that in the twilight of my career? Yeah, this is a job I'm looking to retire from. So it was agonizing to say no to that engineering firm and when I told him, he came back to me. He said it's between me and another guy. And his response to me was like, I'm really disappointed. I really think he was leaning towards me, but I couldn't bank on maybes. And if I'm looking at the lifestyle change, if they were competing jobs in terms of government jobs, I probably would have held out for that more money because I can. But now we're talking lifestyle changes, and that's something else you have to factor into when you're applying. What kind of lifestyle are you willing to lead in this new job? So the one little thing I did want to add, so GJC, I only had one application there, and it was Union County. That used to be the job board for the geospatial industry. I remember when I first, 9 years ago, I was all over that. There were hundreds of jobs. The other day when I was on, there was 41. And all the geospatial jobs moved to LinkedIn or the recruiting firms, or they. Any other questions?
I guess, one tack on, Joe, from what you
Yes.
already discussed. Regarding salary negotiation, did you find, I've heard a variety of people over the years talk about, you don't want to bring it up until things look favorable and someone's really considering you. No, I mean, I think that based on what you said, that sounds like it may be a bit antiquated of an approach at this point. So whenever you, I'm assuming you out of the gate most of the time, said, what's the range you're looking at? Did the recruiter, did whoever you were interacting with at that time, did they seem thrown off, offended, anything like that by those questions? Or most of the time were they fairly understanding and it seems to be a standard practice anymore for applicants in the market?
I would say I don't think I had a negative interaction regarding salary. There were a couple where it's like, yeah, I think we're a little too far away. We can agree this isn't for me. And they completely understood. I mean, they would love to have me at my skill set, but my skill set demands a higher salary, and that position does not command it. And they are very understanding. I did not have any negative interactions, and most of the time, for me, it came up. They would bring it up, like, "What are you in the market for?" And if it was a not a recruiter, if it was somebody from the company, it was like, I would tell them it depends. If I'm moving there and the benefits, all this stuff, and we'd have a discussion, and they'd tell me, it's like, can you give me a range? If you can give me a range, then I can see if we're even in the ballpark, and then we can talk. Because if I'm in the range 75 plus and they're coming in at 45, we're too far apart. They're not going to come up 30 grand for me to even consider taking 5 grand less. So we know that's not an option, and they understand. I've not had any negative interactions in that regard. Again, the classic, your mileage may vary here.
Gotcha. So more often than not, you found them bringing up what are you looking for, rather than that being an end of the line conversation.
Absolutely correct. I don't think I ever said I brought it up. No, I think I did once or twice. We got to like the end. I was like, well, I guess we got to bring up the elephant in the room. And everybody's like, yeah, we've been putting it off too. So some people like to put it off to the end. Most of the time, my experience, it got up right at the beginning. So we didn't waste each other's times. That's the biggest thing. There's no sense in wasting your time or my time, because we know time is a valuable commodity, probably the most valuable commodity next to land that we can't, that we manage. So they don't want to waste their time any more than we want to waste our time. So most often, I would say most of the time there was a declaration at the beginning, or the range was already there. I applied to the job. I knew what the range was. And then I bring it up. It's like, okay, here's the range. I even got union to come up a little bit, from their initial offer. And I always caution that, especially if you know the range, don't expect to go at the very top, because you haven't proven yourself unless you have an impeccable track record. So if you have that track record, go shoot for the moon. If you're like me, I've got a middling track record, and I've only got 10 years of GIS management experience. I can't expect to make top level GIS management salary, but I can reasonably expect a little bit lower and earn my way into that.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Anybody else? No? All right, then. Well, I did put my email in there. Everybody, thank you so very much for coming to listen to me drone on for an hour with my little difficulties and a presentation I whipped together. Should have been working on this a lot longer, but it's been a grind. Like I said, it really, really is. And if anybody else is interested in the information I have, or want to have a conversation, or see any of the job leads I have, because I still have jobs out there, and all sorts of things saved that are still open, that I'll be more than willing to help. People help me out. I'd be love to help anybody else out. I'm in that position too. So if you're not a member of an organization, get in there. Most people here are URISA. If you're not, consider URISA. Join your state organization and network. That I can't stress that enough. Because you might get that interview, but they need references, and you need to have those good references. And a lot of that comes from your network, and you're not always going to use your boss, because your boss you might have met somebody that you work with, on the side, that would just be a better glowing reference for you than your boss. And you might want to use them. So network. Thank you, everybody.